Hello and welcome to episode 5 of Noontime here at the FTN Network. I'm Ryan Noonan. I want to unpack a little bit of what happened last week in the wildcard round, understanding why those 6 teams moved on. We'll look at the 6 teams that are going home, some of the questions that are going to come up for them in the offseason, and then take a look at the early odds that have opened up for the divisional round. Pretty exciting matchups there. Overall, not a great week of football. Just lots of coaching gaffes here and there and not well officiated. Still football though, and we have one more game on Monday night. We have the College Football National Championship to touch on. If you're really looking for some deep dives there, definitely head over to FTN. There are probably some videos here as well unpacking that. I know Noah Riddell is going to have a betting article. It's just understanding a little bit about what's going on and where to leverage the marketplace, even though that game is kicking off later this evening. Also want to touch on the PGA Tour. Got kicked off with the Harris English win over at the Tournament of Champions. Hawaii swing continues this week at Walleye Country Club with the Sony Open. But first, let's dig into the matchups, and we'll start at the beginning of the week here with the Colts and the Bills. Definitely was exciting for that one. Bills got a win here, 27-24. That's a Colts cover and either a push or an under, depending on where you got that line at. Some 51s out there in the marketplace, 51.5, again, depending on where you got it. Again, this is why we want to get in some of these games early, because closing line value makes a ton of difference here. So this is actually a place that I got the worst of the number. I got 51.5 early in the week. And obviously, the 51s were available at other times, and it landed right on the number for a push, unless you had a 51.5 ticket like I did. And you caught the big fat L there. So, but yeah, you got to give it to the Colts. They hung in there pretty well. Josh Allen made some big plays, as we would expect him to do. Hitting Stephon Diggs for some big ones. Really good plays from Gabriel Davis in that one as well. Frank Wright took a little bit of heat, in the Twitter sphere around some fourth down decisions. At the end of the day, I think those are the right decisions. You don't want to be results oriented around going for it in certain situations, going for 2, things like that. I think they really made some smart plays, just didn't really execute. But they hung in this one. They really just ran too much, to be honest. Surprisingly, Phillip Rivers had a pretty decent game. And if they would have been a little bit more pass heavy instead of running a lot of Jonathan Taylor early in that game, in early downs, clear running situations, they probably would have had a better shot there. Same thing with the Bills. They probably just ran too much, too much of a reliance. That's something that they've done really well, has not really been, just situational based. They've been very, hey, this is how we're gonna beat you. We know we can beat you with, our passing game. Josh Allen has been incredibly efficient. They had a full allotment of receivers that they really hadn't had all season, having John Brown back. You see, the impact that Diggs makes here with these highlights. But it should be an interesting one with them moving forward to face the Ravens. We'll unpack that one here in a moment. But I thought that game was definitely just, again, sloppy and really kind of indicative of what we were going to see with some of the rest of the games this weekend. The Colts are interesting moving forward, right? So gave Phillip Rivers a ton of money, 1-year deal, $25 million. They have some nice pieces there, obviously, with a nice draft with Michael Pittman and Jonathan Taylor. The defense up front, addressing, the defensive line issues, making that DeForest Buckner trade, definitely a guy to build around. But addressing the quarterback, if you don't have a quarterback in the NFL, it's hard to be really bullish on your prospects moving forward. T.Y. Hilton's also a free agent, so they have some questions, some things to address in the offseason. Be interested to see what they do there. Is it something that they address in free agency again? Obviously they have Jacoby Brissett on the team, but you can't go back to him after, doing what you did with Phillip Rivers this year. So Colts will be interesting. That division is still going to kind of be up for grabs. There's, lots of questions in that division. So be interesting to see what they do there. Next, we had the Rams in Seattle, 30-20 Rams win. That is a over and a Rams cover in a big way. Very interesting game here, obviously, with the quarterback situation for the Rams. They start John Wolford. We know what happens to him. couple minutes in, jammed up, had neck injury. And then Jared Goff, just a few days removed from thumb surgery, is forced into play. And it wasn't ugly. I mean, it wasn't pretty. It was an ugly game, really on both sides. That was the play right there, the Darius Williams highlight where he absolutely jumped that route to DK Metcalf, and that really flipped the game. Just a tremendous play. And when we talk about the Rams defense all the time, obviously Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, but Darius Williams on the other side has really been kind of a driving force of taking them to the next level. We know that Ramsey's going to be great. We know that Donald's going to be wreaking havoc up front, but what Williams was able to do to really solidify that defense has been outstanding. Huge Cam Akers game. They've really turned to him of late, obviously with Darrell Henderson going down. It's really been the Cam Akers show, and he was really the offense here, because even though Goff got in there, I think Goff was like 9-19. They barely threw for 150 yards. You see these very Rams-esque type of routes here with this Robert Woods touchdown. Mesh concepts, play action, stuff like that. They were able to really protect and hide Goff in the spot. He did enough to move them forward. Seahawks, though, this is a team that this game had a 42 total, 42 and a half. Like, we were attacking Seahawks team totals anytime they were close to 30 for like a month and a half. They were just hanging 30 pluses on everybody, and they just really stalled out. There was a lot of talk going into this game that their defense had been much improved, but they were beating up on really cellar dweller quarterback-wise. I mean, Colt McCoy, Dwayne Haskins, Nick Mullins, they weren't beating elite teams in there and slowing anyone down. So big questions for Seattle are they made a big trade. They gave up a lot of draft picks to add Jamal Adams, who is up for a contract. Kind of the worst trade that you can make. Not this trade specifically, not trading for Adams, but these types of trades where you give up a lot of draft capital for a guy who is a pending free agent, who you now have to sign to a lucrative deal, just kind of hamstrings the team and what they do moving forward. So after all the let Russ cook stuff and people complaining that Russ has never had an MVP vote in his career and how wrong that is, and again, he's going to have no MVP votes and they're one and done in the playoffs. If they beat the Giants in week 13 at home against Colt McCoy, they have the number one seed in the NFC. They're sitting waiting for this weekend to play out so they could play in the divisional round, but they couldn't take care of business down the stretch. They'll obviously run it back with their core group on offense. They need to continue to address the offensive line. But obviously the Adams deal is kind of the big one for them. They got to figure out really what they're doing there. I imagine you don't trade that much draft capital to not sign a guy in free agency. But yeah, let's see what happens there. Next, the Saturday night nightcap had Tom Brady and company 31-23 over the Washington football team. That's, again, depending on your number, that could have been a push. Definitely an over there. In a pretty decent showing, all things considered, for Taylor Heineke in this one. Late they made the move there, knowing that Alex Smith really wasn't going to be mobile at all, and had concerns, and I think rightfully so. He was obviously dealing with a leg injury that plagued him for years, and wasn't going to be mobile, knowing that the Buccaneers are trying to get a lot of pressure. They went with a mobile quarterback like Heineke, and he kept them in the game, surprisingly. What was really surprising is really the Buccaneers able to run the ball, especially without Ronald Jones, who was kind of a mystery inactive / scratch. I mean, he was active, but he was sitting on the bench watching the game like I was with a quad injury. Of course, no information on that prior to the game, which is awesome. I'm not quite sure why that is or how that is even. But Leonard Fournette was the man and got things done. As we expected, even without a full Mike Evans, Brady was able to make plays through the air. Antonio Brown touchdown, really nice touchdown pass to Chris Godwin. And it'll be interesting to see if they're going to have Fournette moving forward. But they were able to do enough here to hold on. On Washington's side, they're another one that's interesting at the quarterback position moving forward. This is obviously a winnable division, though the division obviously is taking different shape moving forward with, Dak hopefully back for Dallas. The Philadelphia situation completely up in the air, but Washington has a lot of encouraging signs. They have a nice young running back in Antonio Gibson. They still have a stud, third year, next year receiver in Terry McLaurin. We know that the defense is young and talented. What do they do at the quarterback position? Alex Smith is a great story. I'm never going to advocate for someone to retire and not continue to pursue their dreams that they've worked their entire life for. But Alex Smith, you made it to the mountaintop, man. You came back from a incredibly gruesome injury that had a million side effect complications that, your life was truly in danger. And you came back and you were able to make starts in the NFL. You helped get a team to the playoffs, and you did it. Go enjoy your life and your family. And, I get it if you would want to continue to cash checks. It's just stay healthy. Having re-aggravated some of those things, just a little bit worrisome. But, what do? By making the playoffs, they obviously are not going to have a early pick in the draft. There will be some free agents at the quarterback position. But Tyler Heineke, Chase Young, probably not the answer, even though he played well enough to keep you in that game. Be interesting to see what they do moving forward. So kind of a continued theme here so far. Some of the teams that got eliminated this weekend have some major questions at the quarterback position that they have to address in the offseason. And Washington is no different. That was the end of the Saturday slate. I was really looking forward more than anything to the Baltimore and Tennessee game, and it was kind of a dud. Baltimore got the win, though, 20-13. That is a Baltimore cover and an under. Baltimore shut down Derrick Henry, 18 carries, 40 yards for the big dog. That's not going to get it done. It looked like it was going to be back and forth offensive shootout, really, with Tennessee kind of doing whatever they wanted to do on the opening drive, getting the ball into A.J. Brown's hands and him make plays, but just wasn't enough. They really continued to stall. You saw a lot from that Baltimore defense. In the second half, they just really limited Tennessee, who really didn't have trouble moving the ball all season. They had a couple of hiccups, but really stacking the box against Henry. He saw a stuffed box, 8 or more defenders on 13 of his 18 carries, and those carries got 24 yards. So just not enough. You can't rely on, Tennessee is just as good as they are offensively. When they get behind and they get in those situations and they can't really lean on Henry to really manipulate and control the game, different things happen. And it wasn't enough for them this week. This was really the big play, obviously, with the scramble from Lamar Jackson. Lamar was decent as a passer, but really got it done with some big plays on the ground. This one, crucial, really late fourth quarter runs to really just ice the game here. If we would have seen the Steelers take care of business, we would have seen a rematch with the Chiefs. But now we get a Ravens and Bills game, which will be very interesting. We'll talk about it in a moment. So, Tennessee in the offseason, they need to improve the defense drastically. They had no pass rush to speak of, lots of questions in the secondary, and, just not enough to really compete at the top with these teams like the Ravens and the Chiefs, even the Bills. Those teams all have at least somewhat decent defenses, and just not really seeing it from Tennessee, and it really showed up in a big way here. Corey Davis was a complete no-show, literally no catches, and he's a free agent. Be interesting to see if he is back. Seems pretty unlikely. Seemed to be really upset on the sideline too, so I don't know if there's something that went down there, but also Arthur Smith, their offensive coordinator, who is going to be interviewing for a lot of head coaching jobs, a likely candidate in numerous spots. What is the impact of Arthur Smith and how he's really been able to make Ryan Tannehill one of the better quarterbacks in the AFC? Really play action, boot stuff that they run very heavily. That works a lot for them. So I don't know. That's really the kind of the big tipping point for the Titans' futures. What happens at offensive coordinator? Do they keep Arthur Smith? Are they able to keep him? Or can they bring in someone that can run a similar system, knowing that worked so well for Tannehill? So I don't want to minimize the addition of Smith and what he did and say that you can find someone that just fits right in and runs it the same way, but that's got to be the goal for them. They have to try to do something that can duplicate what worked there. Next was the Saints and Bears game. Saints 21-9 over Chicago. Is obviously it was a Saints cover and an under. If you got in really late, there were some 11s, 11.5s out there. And that mattered because the Bears scored at the very end of the game with a Jimmy Graham one-handed catch that was meaningless, but not for us in the betting market. What was interesting is they didn't, because it was irrelevant, did not kick the extra points, which could have resulted in a push or a cover, depending on, again, where you got the line. But I'm going to give credit to both DraftKings Sportsbook and FanDuel Sportsbook for doing the right thing. They've reimbursed customers. And I wouldn't even say, it's not even fair to say that that's the right thing. It's just good business that they've reimbursed people that kind of had a bad luck loss with Chicago's decision to not kick the extra point. So, yeah, I mean, we see these books. You see Benny has videos here all the time here on FTN talking about ways to, leverage the boosts and the different offerings that these books do. They're really fighting for our business. If you are in a state that has, these options out there, they want to really get foothold in the marketplace. So they do all these different promotions to really keep us. And these are the little things they can do over the long haul that are going to help them win and keep customers as well. So, I'm in Illinois. I have both DraftKings and FanDuel. I also have other books, and those books didn't do this. So, at the end of the day, where am I going to take my business? If I know that something like this happened, I might get a break from one of those. And at the end of the day, it's those little things, right? We're always fighting for the little edges. That's why we're talking about getting closing line value, trying to get in on games before predicted line movements, having multiple accounts. That way you can shop lines because you want to be able to get the best of the number. And when you have multiple accounts, at the end of the day, like, what am I going to click first to look? I'm going to go to FanDuel and DraftKings because I know that their customer service is just a level above maybe some of the other books that are out there. So props to them for doing it. What was really cool here was this was, depending on, I guess, your age and who else is in your household, there were 2 broadcasts of this game. You could also watch the CBS feed, and then they also did it on Nickelodeon, which is really cool. My son is 12, so maybe a little above Nickelodeon's prime age, but they made it fun for kids. I thought this part was really cool. Like, for a flag, they had young Sheldon pop out and explain what the penalty actually means. Like, here's a false start. Here's what false start means. Obviously branding it with kids that they're familiar with. Some of the other people that they're Nickelodeon characters, you would say that they're familiar with, because if you, if you kicked a field goal, you had a little SpongeBob action. But so really cool of the NFL to try to do this to, gain younger viewers. Makes a lot of sense to try to bring in any eyeballs that you can. I thought Nate Burleson was great on the coverage of that too. So, props to the NFL for getting that right. I thought that they were smart by doing that. I would love to see some sort of, alternative views like that at other times. Same thing, like the Titans and Ravens game will simulcast in multiple ways by ESPN. One on ESPN Plus that was basically an all analytics driven team, along with their betting team out in Vegas. So you got a lot of like live reports on, live in-game betting, the live total, how it was moving, predicting based on this drive, what's going to happen with the line. All those things are really great. And especially in island games like that, I feel like that's the future. Hopefully we can be a part of that at FTN and finding different ways to bring highlights to you. But, back to this game, it wasn't super exciting either. This was that first drive. You had a Michael Thomas touchdown, and, good to have him back. Really shocking that we've only seen 10 quarters of football with Drew Brees and Michael Thomas together this season, with how incredible they were last year. The Bears really struggled offensively. They came in without Darnell Mooney. You had Anthony Miller get ejected early in the third with Chauncey Gardner-Webb, who is just incredible. Like, that dude has got 2 Bears ejected. He got his own teammate to be suspended when Michael Thomas hit him in practice. That guy seems to be someone that likes to agitate people. But anyway, obviously the Saints move on. They face the Buccaneers. And Chicago, off-season questions. They have, obviously, quarterback issues they have to address. Are they going to re-sign Trubisky? Are they going to address it elsewhere? They, again, gave up a lot, surprisingly, to bring Nick Foles in. That did not work out so well. Allen Robinson's a free agent. That's a massive question. He's really their best offensive player. Obviously David Montgomery was solid down the stretch, but, wide receivers like Robinson are difference makers. Not so much for a guy like Montgomery is kind of just a jag. But, it'd be interesting to see what they do here. And, Trubisky played decent down the stretch. We talked about it at length. Again, similar to the Seahawks. He got his mojo back on really the league's worst defenses down the stretch. Houston, Jacksonville, Detroit all in the last month. And does that sway the Bears to think that, things are fixed and, he's really turned a page and this is someone that we really want to build around and give a lucrative contract to? All free agent quarterback contracts are fairly lucrative. So they obviously have the ability to franchise if they see fit. But that's going to be a massive question. I'm really interested to see what they do here, being located here in Chicago and hearing a lot of talk about Trubisky. So, that one's going to be interesting. The last game was wild. The Browns 48-37 over the Steelers. It is obviously an over. Browns went over by themselves and a Browns cover here. Man, that one got out of hand like instantly. And I'll show you that really the first play of the game was this bad snap right away, literally out the gate. Couldn't recover it, couldn't kick it through the back of the end zone, and the Browns fall right on top of it and get up early. And, I was interested in the Browns early in this game. Stefanski, the head coach, was out, but he was a part of game planning early in this week. So they are a script the first 15, script the first 20 plays team. And I thought there was maybe some value in the market on getting some Browns first quarter, Browns first half, but I didn't think it was going to be because of turnovers. This Jarvis Landry touchdown play was big. The play, before it was a Ben interception. Ben threw 4 interceptions in this one. Got a lot of garbage time late. Threw the ball almost 70 times. But the Steelers started out 11-0. Obviously had massive hopes this season for Super Bowl berth. Took some injuries on the defensive side they weren't able to make up for. Couldn't really hide the fact that their quarterback was a little older and limited. They had absolutely no running game to speak of this year, which is really surprising. What do they do with that in the offseason? They have addressed the position in the draft the last few years in the middle to late rounds. But their big question as well is quarterback. You saw it there real quick. Ben, is he done? Does he come back? He's up there in age. You see these guys, the remaining guys here this weekend with Phillip Rivers and Roethlisberger, the end of the 2004 quarterback draft class. What happens there? Steelers obviously have a lot of other things that are encouraging. A really young, talented receiving core. Defense is, I think, mostly signed to stay and is mostly young. They get back and they're healthy. They're going to be a contender again. What do they do at quarterback? So that's going to be a big, big question for them. Again, not able to address it like they would want, I think, in the draft. But maybe they want to make a move there. That's going to be really important for them. Again, a division that is continuing to get better. The Browns maybe overperformed a little bit this year, but they're solid. We know the Ravens aren't really going anywhere. So there's going to be some questions in that division, and can the Steelers address it through quarterback? Let's take a look at the opening odds. Let me move this here. Make sure we're good. This technical stuff, guys, it's really something. But here are the opening odds. Let's look at the spreads first. All right, Rams moving on. They got the Packers. Packers coming off a bye, obviously, in Lambeau, 7.5, which makes sense. I thought this would probably be right around 7. I understand why we're seeing it hooked up there. The Rams have a lot of questions, right? Aaron Donald got hurt in that game. Cooper Kupp got dinged up in that game. They will likely go with Goff because, Walford is unlikely, and Goff obviously played enough to get a win. So I imagine it's Goff really without question moving forward. And we're really looking at two of the top units in the league. You have the Packers offense, which has been the best in the league, leading the league in EPA per play, DVOA, points per drive, yards per drive on the season. They've been outstanding. And then the Rams defense has been great. They are somewhat equipped to slow down what the Packers want to do, which is a lot of Devontae Adams. They could put Ramsey on him and slow him down. That makes things pretty interesting here. Can the Packers get a ground game going? Can the Packers defense continue to play well enough to limit this limited Rams offense? I think that's why you see a little bit of a lower total when we get to that. But this one kind of makes sense to me, being right around that number. The Ravens and Bills. And again, your book might have different lines. These might have moved by the time you watch this. Again, this is why you want to try to get in when you have a lean as early as you can. Bills are going to be 2.5 point, 3-point favorites probably against the Ravens at home. Really looking at two of the highly questionable quarterbacks coming out of that draft class, right? So we have, Baker Mayfield, who also was in this playoff, but, Allen went last. There was a lot of questions. He went last in that first group. And then you had, obviously, Lamar going at the tail end of the first round. And these two have been, by far, the class of that draft class. And now they meet head-to-head. Should be a really exciting one. I think you'll probably see this sit right around 3 for most of the week. Maybe down to 2.5 again. These are, I think, two of the hottest, if not the two hottest football teams in the league. The Bills have won 10 of the last 11. The Ravens have been playing really good football down the stretch. They beat up on some bad teams, but they're playing really well. So that one's going to be a really fun nightcap on Saturday night. Next, we have the Browns and Chiefs. Cleveland, congratulations. Great game against Pittsburgh. Your present is a trip to Arrowhead in the playoffs. You're going to see this probably around 10. You're seeing 9.5 out there right now. I'm seeing some other books that are moving a little bit on this early. The Chiefs have been that team defending Super Bowl champs. We've talked about their ability to turn the switch on and off. Is that really what they want to do here? We're in the playoffs now, right? So switches should be on. There's been a lot of talk about, they're winning. They're 15-1. I think they've won 23 of their last 24, but they haven't covered in a while. And, the folks like us that are speculating and betting on games have been able to take some points at times. It's just really hard to take points against the Chiefs, knowing that their upside is really through the roof here. So Browns obviously going to be a little bit more full strength, getting their coach back, getting some offensive linemen healthy. That's going to be impactful. Knowing what they want to do, running the football, play action, they could have some success doing that against the Chiefs. The Chiefs are not particularly good at stopping the run, and they can set up the play action there as well. That's going to be interesting. Can they get enough out of their defense to slow down Patrick Mahomes? And that's a big question. And they're going to need Denzel Ward back. He did not play that game against Pittsburgh. I have to know what his status is. I know he got in some limited practices. They're going to need him and more. I think it's going to be a little bit too much for them, but 10's a lot of points in the NFL. So have to look at that a little bit deeper as the week goes on. The the nightcap, we have the Bucks. You knew this was going to be the anchor of the slate. Third time the Tampa and New Orleans are going to meet up. New Orleans won the first two matchups quite handily by, I think, 26 points combined. They played in week 1. But the Buccaneers are definitely finding a groove that they didn't have early in the season. And you're seeing here that the Saints are 3.5-point favorites at home. I've seen some 4s out there as well. which is, it makes sense here when you're seeing how this is kind of juiced on the Bucs side. This is going to be a good one in the Dome with how this Buccaneers offense is playing right now. I'm excited for this one. I think we're going to have some good football. Let's look at the totals here. Seeing 46.5 for the Rams-Packers. When you look at the distribution of scores over the course of the history of the NFL, the last 20 years, 47 is a key number. So is 44. So you also know that the public likes to bet overs. So you could look at it as this is under the key number of 47, or if this matchup plays out a little bit like I think it might, where the Packers aren't going to have the ability to do all the crazy things they've been doing offensively, maybe this is a little bit higher than a key number of 44, right? So you're looking at implied team totals here for the Packers of about 27.5. We've been jumping on the Packers anywhere below 28, below 30 of late. So that one's interesting. Team total for the Rams around 20.5. Next with the Ravens here, we're seeing 49.5. I think this probably gets bet up a little bit. Team total really interesting here. I don't have a lean per se on the side yet, but you're seeing a Ravens team total at this number is like 23.5, 23.25. Again, individual team totals, looking at distributions of scores, key numbers for team totals, 23, 24. As you get a little bit higher up into the 27s, 28s. This is a little low for a Ravens offense that can have some success. They didn't do much, only 20 points against the Titans last week. But, same thing with the Bills. You're looking at the Bills team total around 26.5, 26.25 as well, under the key number of 27. With being interested in both of those overs, that's leaning me to a lean early on that one, just as a game total for an over. I think that one gets steamed up a little bit as the week goes on. If you're interested, I'd get in a little bit early. 55 is the total in Kansas City. You're looking at a Chiefs team total around 32.5 there. The Browns down at 23.5. Could be some interest there. Team total at 32.25. Knowing distributions of scores again, 30, 31 tends to be pretty key. Getting the Chiefs at 32.5 is a little high. Again, for all the success that the Browns had the other night against the Steelers, still gave up 37 in garbage time with a pass-heavy offense in the second half. I think the Chiefs are able to get some points up on the board. And then the Bucs and the Saints, you're going to hear this all week. The narrative of, it's hard to beat a team 3 times, all of these silly things. A lot of points to be expected here, 51.5. So you're looking at 27.5 as a team total for the Saints at this one, kind of in between those two key numbers, and a team total of 24 for the Bucs. So, and if you like the Bucs here, 24 is a little light with how their offense has been playing, and in a dome, it's a nice environment. Really, you're looking at possible weather at all 3 other venues, knowing that Green Bay can be like on a Saturday night in January, Buffalo the same thing, Kansas City that can be very cold, and then you got a dome game in New Orleans. So as far as game environments for scoring, that one is pretty nice. Again, there's some defenses that can be pretty stout at times. Tampa Bay not so much in the secondary, but I can expect a lot of points. Again, 51 is a key number, so 51.5 is juiced a little bit on the wrong side of it. But again, it makes a lot of sense scoring environment-wise. So hit me up in the comments. I would love to know what your thoughts are on this weekend, some of those early looks, what jumps out to you from a value standpoint, sides, totals, team totals that we just kind of walk through. We'd love to know what your thoughts are down there. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that button as well. We also want to talk real quick about the national championship game. I'm not a college football aficionado, but it's going to be a good one on Monday night with Alabama and Ohio State. 9-point favorites for Alabama. I think the total is 75. That is a lot of points, but I would lean over if you're watching this. The Ohio State defense is not great, and Alabama is scoring like 20.5 points per game. They are going to have no problem getting up into the high mid-40s here. It's a matter of is Ohio State able to hang and put up some points on the other side? I think they will be able to. 75 is a lot, but in a game like that, that's going to go back and forth. You don't want to hold an under ticket enjoy that one. Again, don't forget to look at FTN for some other content here in our videos. Again, Noah Riddell writing something from a betting standpoint. Look at some props that I know he's interested in. I don't know that Devontae Smith receiving prop has probably jumped the shark at this point. I think it's like 134 yards. That dude can do that on like 3 catches as well. Some interest in some of the Ohio State receiver props as well. So don't forget to look over at our betting tracker. Again, if you have not signed up at ftnbets.com, use promo code Noonan and get you 10% off. That promo code is available for any of our sites, FTN Daily, FTN Fantasy as well. So before we wrap up, I want to show you just a quick look at the early look for Sony Open. We don't have odds all the way up. I just have an idea of what the field is. I got some early odds, though, from DK Sportsbook. They're not posted yet, though, so I can't bet them fully. But looking at some of the top golfers in the field here, I believe Webb Simpson's going to be the favorite in the betting market, around 11 to 12 to 1. Colin Morikawa right behind him. You're going to look at some of these guys that played last week in the Century Tournament of Champions. They were already out there in Hawaii. We've seen over the last few years a lot of success with guys that played in that event the previous week. You see Cam Smith down there. He's the defending champ. Last year was kind of a strange event. Cam Smith won. I think he just was 14 under. Years past, though, was very similar to what we just saw at Century, where you'd have a lot of guys in the high to mid 20s. Very different course here. A lot harder to drive the ball. Not really penal for you to miss the fairway, but greens and fairways are a little harder to hit. But putting tends to be a lot easier. So this is a second shot course, and you got to make your putts. See a lot of talk from these golfers, guys like Kevin Kisner, Patrick Reed, who have had some success here in the past. Even Cam Smith, that really talk about loving putting here. The last week at Century in Maui, there's a lot of contours. Even in the fairway, you're not having a really flat shot, whereas there's some opportunity here to attack some pins and to be really aggressive with putts. So I think you're gonna have some low scoring opportunities. Again, I'll have a write up on my betting card at FTN Bets as the week goes on. Typically by Wednesday morning, the team is killing it. Axis had a outright ticket last week and was telling us to bet Harris English, and he won last week. So props to Axis and the rest of the team. Sky obviously doing great work as well. Don't forget to check out all the cool stuff from Mayo and Feinberg. Look for their betting show over at Mayo Media Network. Again, just outstanding golf content here at FTN. Betting on golf is very different. Feel free to reach out if you have questions. Picking outrights like a 33 to 1. We would never touch a 33 to 1 in the football market, but these guys have real win equity at that number. This is a little different. This is more of a full field event here for the Sony. There are 144 golfers in the field versus 42. But again, we're going to continue to pump out hopefully exceptional betting content all season long for you at FTN. All right. Real quick, I'm not going to get into this very much because, I don't want to have a political take. This is not a political take. This is going to sound perhaps like a political take. I think that, without, again, you didn't come here to watch this to have what are Noonan's thoughts on the recent current events in our country. That is not why you're here. If you are interested in that, we've probably already talked about it. The Bill Belichick Medal of Freedom piece is kind of what I want to touch on. And if you haven't heard, one of the things that a president can do, and this dates back to JFK, basically created this Presidential Medal of Freedom, where it is the highest honor that can be bestowed on a civilian who has made impacts in anything social, cultural, really anything. It is a very broad brush. Last week, Annika Sorensen and Gary Player were awarded the Medal of Freedom. I'm not going to get into the semantics of is Belichick a viable candidate for it. Within the scope of what is covered by who is eligible for it, he is. It's fine. He has made incredible contributions culturally in his field. I think that's indisputable. I think again, not political, because I really feel like being frustrated about what's happened of late in our country isn't even really political. I feel like it's really just ethical and moral. And Belichick has a tough decision, and I hope he does the right thing. It's not a political decision. It's an ethical and moral decision. As a card-carrying Patriot fan, I'm really torn on this. I mean, it's got to be an incredible honor, and I'm sure he is humbled by the opportunity to receive such a prestigious award. But it's not a read the room moment, because I feel like read the room is more about like being a victim of, of the pressures from the outside. I feel like he needs to do some of his own internal reading of the room. I know that there's been support there in the past. There's been a lot of people that have supported in the past. And again, not political, but this is a moral and ethical thing that I really hope that Belichick gets right. And I think by showing the courage that has been done a lot in the social sphere in the last 72 hours, even the PGA removing the PGA Championship in 2022 from Bedminster in New Jersey. I think that took courage and strength in the moment, and I hope that Belichick has it as well. So with that wraps up this week of Noontime. Again, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Check out all the other cool videos here at FTN Network, and we'll see you again next time.